Mesolithic site of Lasets. Interpretative planning. This interpretative plan is setting out a unique and engaging visitor experience at the Mesolithic site of Lasets in Serbia by focusing on the assessment of the site's values and meanings, with proposal to improve transparency, accessibility, and local engagement. The key aim is to make Vlasets a fun and engaging must-visit destination. Vlasets is situated approximately 3 kilometers downstream from the type site of Lepenski Vir in the upper gorge of the Danube on the Serbian side of the river. It is one of many archaeological sites within the Đerdap National Park in the area of particular cultural and natural significance and diversity. The site was first excavated between 1970 and 1971 by Dragoslav Srejović and Zagor Kaletica. New excavations began in 2006 and are still ongoing, spatially taking place upslope from the excavation area that was excavated in 1970s. The evidence suggests that the site was continuously occupied from the early Mesolithic around 9500 BC to Middle Neolithic around 5900 BC. The site is known for numerous and elaborate burial practices and domestic features, such as trapezoidal dwellings and rectangular stone-lined huts.
We have in the Danube Gorges with the sites like Lepenski Vir and those associated sites like Vlasets and others, is that this is a unique phenomenon that is very rarely found in European prehistory, just the existence of the Mesolithic in general. There are not that many sites, maybe Scandinavia with more sites than other places, but still we lack many sites in Southern Europe, in Central Europe, and so on. And let alone the preservation and the abundance of the material that we have at places like Lepenski Vir and Vlasets.
Today, Vlasets is generally in a fragile state and endangered due to insufficient management system. Since the excavation in 2006, the River Danube exposed a part of the site, and in 2009, the nearby hydroelectric power plant Đerdap founded the stone embankment in effort to preserve the rest of the site from further erosion and flooding. Human presence is scarce. The excavation team and occasional visitors would take a boat ride from the shores near Lepenski Vir Museum, provided courtesy of the local fishermen. The journey takes approximately 15 minutes to half an hour, depending on their skillful navigation through the Danube waters. The short survey conducted in May and June 2020 on 22 participants from Serbia and abroad ran in effort to get a better idea of various aspects of Vlasets' heritage potential. One of the survey questions addressed the familiarity of the site. It is interesting to note that 7 out of 22 participants didn't even know about the existence of the site, but all would like to visit and learn more about it. The trend of either anonymity, of being overshadowed by Lepenski Vir, is dominant in the wider public as well. The responses concerning reasons for visit ranged from personal fulfillment and research to sense of pride as something deemed worth showing even foreign friends and visitors. In response to those feelings of belonging and pride, and in effort to offer potential visitors and local inhabitants something more than just sightseeing, this interpretive planning also considered values that are associated with the site, whether they reside or take place there or somewhere else. Private stories, old photographs, local customs, food and music were all deployed in telling the story of Vlasets and how this collection of rather spiritual values shaped the idea of site's interpretation and presentation. The interpretive planning proposal identified 3 priorities in relation to the site. Site transparency, raising public awareness of the existence and importance of site heritage resources via social media presence and better signage on the spot. Accessibility, enabling site visits for leisure and/or education. Community-based activities and site attractions based on tangible and intangible assets, one site activity and one off-site activity. Site transparency and public awareness. As a best practice, the initiative to popularize the site would have to be correlated with the Lepenski Vir Museum. Popular touristic attraction and a place of mandatory school field trips, the museum offers a perfect platform for raising awareness of a Mesolithic site in its vicinity. The way of doing so is by developing and advertising Vlasic's website and placing touristic panels within the Lepenski Vir Ethnopark. From being the first and sometimes the only point of information for visitors with special needs, the website offers a platform for community engagement and serves for public education. Due to the open site nature of both Lepenski Vir and Vlasic and shortage of employees and volunteers at the moment on the grounds, panels would have to offer general information, be self-explanatory and give directional instructions. Accessibility and site visits. The frontage of Vlasic, although surrounded with stable and permanent stone embankment, is in no condition to offer safe docking for a large number of people. Hence, the proposal would have to be put in place to rationalize the space and ensure the facilities built in relation to the site are of high quality and standards. This would have to be designed in such a way as not to damage or invade the fabric of the site, but to bear the volume of timber and metal structures. In addition, it would have to be sustainable and incur low costs. The reward would come in the shape of engaging the local community in building, maintenance and staffing support. Lastly, the content presented on the site has to be designed as a combination of leisure, with resting benches and walking platforms, with informative and educational content, such as acrylic see-through panels and scenes of real-life experiences, such as reconstruction of Mesolithic house. The original landscape of the Mesolithic site offers a potential for acrylic panels as a choice for presenting how things used to look like in the past. Visitors would position themselves in front of the panel and be able to project a cut-in drawing from the panel to the landscape in front of them. The theory coined in 1970s that the mountain called Treskovac on the Romanian side of the river Danube, opposite Lepenski Vir and Vlasic, was the inspiration for the Mesolithic dwellers due to its trapezoidal shape, still stands. If reconstructed and well preserved, this intriguing trapezoidal house could tie together tangible evidence of past human activity with the natural landscape and the sense of spiritual dimension of a place. Community-based activities. Although trends indicate the need for attractions to appeal to the broader public, this may entail increased collaboration with the tourists and set aside the local community. And so, following the research, choices for community-based activities resulted in the combination of the two. Majority of correspondents and survey respondents opt for one site-related activity directed towards children's involvement and one off-site related activity particularly valued within the local community. On-site activity. Creative Dig-In Weekend. The Lepenski Vir Ethnopark could install environmentally friendly play area for activities to take place in. In this way, through play, a more profound connection can be formed with the environment and heritage. Families with children aged 6 to 15 would get a chance to entertain themselves for a day, learning how people lived in the past, how to identify archaeological finds, or how to make archaeological illustrations. Although educational, the activities would aim to be creative and interactive and in a relaxed and informal atmosphere, encouraging imagination and independent conclusions. Off-site activity. Fishing event. The everyday life of local fishing communities on the river Danube is busy. Specific to the area, a technique called buchka is used to catch catfish, and interestingly, the fishing technique from the past could have been strikingly similar to those of today. The technique requires training, skill, dexterity when maneuvering the boat, knowledge of the river currents and the configuration of the riverbed, but above all, patience and perseverance. It consists of tapping the water with a club called buchka and making a sound that most likely irritates catfish and encourages them to swim closer to the surface where it is easier to catch them. Similar events already exist along Danube, but having the town of Donji Milanovac host some of the fishing tournaments would inevitably attract more people to the site of Lepenski Vir and Vlasic, where, say, certain events could take place, as prize award ceremonies. Having fishing events organized around those prehistoric sites would contextualize and connect tangible and intangible heritage, offering perhaps a solution to preserve and pass on the practice that has been a living part of rich regional heritage. In considering henceforth how to organize life around the site of Lasets, the success of the attraction would depend on site transparency and local community engagement. In that regard, following solutions have been presented. 1. Raising awareness, developing educational and tourist-based website, placing information panels within the Lepenski grounds and Etno Park. 2. The logistics of site visits and site content, construction of a docking, walking and resting platforms, rebuilding of the Mesolithic house, and see-through panels with prehistoric content. 3. Local engagement, involving locals in site management, consultation, and staffing support. Engaging families with children in creative site-related activities. Organizing a competitive fishing event with the aim to show and preserve the local tradition. Whether it is prehistoric site, a medieval monastery, or a modern parkland space, a negotiable approach has to be adopted with multiple stakeholders and local, regional, and national governments, with carefully nuanced local and universal values and memory meanings. Paradoxically, perhaps, despite the effort to include a myriad of actors in the co-creative process, a heritage professional will in the end have to prioritize and embrace some and discard other aspects of undoubtedly divergent interests. To that end, interpretative planners have to keep the right not to fossilize one image over many possibilities and thus bequest unchangeable heritage narratives. After all, communities are constantly in motion rather than fixed entities and descriptions, and our aim should be to understand them and help retell their ever-changing stories.